5 largest power stations in China are all dams on the Yangtze River. After the Three Gorges Dam, which is the largest power station in the world, the other 4 form a cascade through gorges on the Yangtze's upper section, called the Jinsha River, as it flows northwards to mark the boundary between Sichuan and Yunnan provinces. They are Wudongde, Baihetan, Xiluodu and Xiajiaba. Together with the Three Gorges Dam and Gechuba Dam in Hubei, they make up the largest clean energy corridor in the world. From the Jinsha down through the Yangtze River's middle and lower reaches to the sea, a multi-energy complementary system involving water, wind and solar resources is being built. This is the passionate answer China gives to the world on how to curb emissions and achieve carbon neutrality in the 21st century. Baihetan was on its way to making its debut as a world-class electricity generating facility, just as Wudongde Dam, 200 kilometers upstream, had done a year earlier. Wudongde, first of the 4 cascade mega dams on the lower Jinsha, stands 270 meters tall, just shy of Baihetan's 289 meters. The last of its 12 850 megawatt turbines started generating electricity in June 2021.
看到这一湖水以后，这一湖水看到我们看的不是水啊，我们看的是能源。
Yang Zhongli, a senior hydropower engineer, spent 5 years building the Wudongde Dam, along with thousands of other workers. After the riverbanks had been reinforced and the dam's foundations laid, the dam itself could be built. Then, deep in the mountains, came the task of installing its electricity generating units.
两岸山体里面的基础那是转动的一个不停的转动，它的水能的效益就能充分的发挥出来。
In underground powerhouses on the left and right banks of the river, Wudongde's 12 turbines give it a total installed capacity of 10.2 gigawatts.
每天上班就是从这个洞口一进来，就是看到这种一个洞穴和一个现代化的建筑的一个结合就是有一种穿越的感觉吧，感觉这是人的力量还是很大的。
喂，你好，中国实习青年。
In the central control room, which is built out of a natural karst cave, a large screen shows the dam's generating units are running at full capacity. Deng Kai and his colleagues need to monitor the operating status of the units in real time. The staff of the hydropower station work in 8-hour shifts. Deng Kai is the head of this shift, and his role is usually called a shift supervisor in the industry.
这边是这个溶洞里的这个疾控楼了，12台机组的作战指挥中心，也就是说必须得高度紧张、严谨细致。
Wudongde hydropower station feeds the electricity it generates into the China southern power grid. In 2021, the electricity consumption of China's 5 southern provinces and regions increased by 11.1% year on year, with Guangdong province continuing to lead the country. To ensure a high-quality supply in the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area, Deng Kai and his colleagues need to pay extra attention to inflection points between the morning and evening peaks.
再南往下，乌东德是它最大的一个直调电厂，每天的调风量都很大。电话一响，反正就有种条件反射就接电话。哎，你好，乌东德左岸电厂那台。哦，好的，好，行。
喂，你好，中国实习青年。
调整下发左场接替计划曲线，请
As the command of peak regulation is issued, the curve on the screen of the control room's operation monitor changes in real time. Wudongde must respond to changes in load demand to ensure a stable power supply. Its generating units also need to be ready to make up for troughs of photovoltaic and wind power, which happen when there's not enough sun and wind.
长江最大水电走廊上各个水电站充分发挥水电调节能力，提高可再生能源综合开发水平，增加清洁能源供应。
Water, sunlight and wind are clean energy resources bestowed by Mother Nature. To make them complement each other, and particularly to achieve an effective combining of traditional hydropower with naturally fluctuating wind and photovoltaic power sources, engineers need to optimize the system and equipment. Time is energy. Improving the efficiency of unit examination and maintenance is the key to ensuring each unit's efficient operation.
我们先检查一下这个4号泵的这个振动怎么样？
Chung Sing is an engineer with over 10 years of experience in mechanical maintenance. Underneath the hydraulic pipes he inspects is a 500-meter-long slope diversion tunnel. A powerful current of water rushes down through it and past a turbine at high pressure, causing the turbine to rotate and thereby generate electricity.
很长的这个饮水隧道，每一次检修排水，它都需要耗费近30个小时的排水。这像我们之前的时候用那个基础供水，就是用这个基础。
The diversion tunnel has a volume of 80,000 cubic meters, equivalent to 38 standard swimming pools, making it extremely difficult for Chung Sing and his colleagues to carry out quick maintenance.
我们这回油箱上面的话，主要要检查一下这个主和阀，看这有没有渗漏的。
To allow the power generating units to be available as much as possible for peak regulation, engineers have been trying to find a quick solution for drainage and maintenance. An earlier drainage method was to open the unit's guide vane manually, which involves more than 70 steps.
流程也相当的繁琐。 在不同的这个层分布了不同的设备，然后每一层操作人员去进行一个相应的一些操作，所以就不太好控制机组的这一个转速。
Would it be possible to complete the tedious process of manual drainage by pushing a single button? Chung Sing and several young technicians formed a team to conquer the challenge.
我们这个尾水平压的这个问题，
机组的转速不能过高，不能过速。
Chang and his team members created a negative pressure simulation model of the diversion tunnel. It used key data like rotating speed, temperature, and vibration of the units to arrive at a one-click solution. Finally, it was time for testing. By pushing a button, the earlier 12-step process, including guide vane opening, unit startup and shutdown, was completed automatically within 15 minutes, greatly reducing maintenance time.
从这些70多步的繁琐流程了，然后突然之间变成了一键就给开启，一个人就能完成，这是一个巨大的一个进步。 离岛准备启动了。
For achieving the single-button draining of a water turbine unit with such a huge capacity, this was an industry first. To go further for the comprehensive overall digital and intelligent operation and maintenance of the generating units, the hydropower engineers still have a lot of work to do. It is 6 p.m. In line with the peak regulation command from the power grid, Shift Supervisor Dung Kai needs to start unit number 9. Wudongde is a huge facility, but the complex regulation of its units can be managed with ease from its central control room.
现在新能源的接入并网的容量是越来越大，而且现在电力可靠性的指标是越来越高。零飞停是什么概念？就是机组在运行过程中不能有一次跳闸，这在以前是不可想象的。
Walking on the towering dam between the mountains and gorges and looking at its winding transmission lines stretching into the distance, Wang Jintao, manager of Wudongde Hydropower Station, is full of emotion.
我们6座电站啊，和那个风光来互补啊，形成一个真正的一个清洁走廊。
In 2020, China announced that it would strive for its carbon emissions to peak by 2030 and to achieve carbon neutrality by 2060. To this end, as the main force of national energy development, hydropower projects have been naturally included in this strategy.
一份水电装机能带动3份不稳定的光伏和风电。 变成稳定的电源输出，这个清洁能源走廊的节能降碳的潜力啊，可以说是巨大。长江滚滚东流去，不尽能源滚滚来。
Thousands of kilometers downriver, meanwhile, an offshore wind farm installation vessel is preparing to set sail from the Yangtze estuary.
大副、二副啊，我们那个人员前后准备啊。
准备好了。
人员到齐了吗？
人员到齐，到齐。
Chung Mao Jun is a veteran captain with decades of sailing experience. Today, he will pilot the maiden voyage of Three Gorges Energy 001 to a wind farm 200 nautical miles away.
好了，现在我这马上解掉，你们把位置给我控制住可以了，前后尽量不要动了。三峡洞洞幺现在起航。
Under the traction and escort of tugboats, the nearly 10,000-ton offshore vessel slowly sails out of the mouth of the Yangtze River. At this point, Captain Chung Mao Jun's mood is just like the undulating sea waves.
我们这个平台是无动力平台，它没有车跟舵，完全就是依靠我们指挥拖龙移出来，所以说难度的话比我们以往的要比较大。
Can this unpowered offshore vessel, very different from those that Chung was captained before, sail safely in high winds and waves to become a solid platform for deep-sea operations? The installation of the first offshore wind turbine at sea in the next few days will test whether it can meet its design requirements.
自己打造一艘独立的这个海工船，说实在，跨航如隔山，每一项上都是一个很严重的挑战。
根据最近的天气情况分析，目前相关海域能见度良好，风力东北风3到4级。
According to the latest shipping forecast, the maximum wind speed at the wind farm, marked as Jiangsu Dafeng H8-2, will be 10 meters per second in the coming days. To seize this rare window, the installation of the first wind turbine is scheduled for the following morning. This large offshore wind farm under development off Dafeng in northern Jiangsu province is the furthest from shore yet built by the Three Gorges Renewables Group. Compared with offshore mudflats, wind resources far out at sea are more abundant. Over the past 7 years, the Three Gorges Renewables Group has built large offshore wind farms off Tronghe in Liaoning province, Xiangshui in Jiangsu province, Xinhua Bay in Fujian province, and Yangjiang in Guangdong province. Starting from the Yellow Sea and extending south along the coastline, these make up an offshore wind power corridor with the largest installed capacity in China. The farther from shore, the more difficult it is to install a wind turbine. To cope with complex sea conditions and become a platform for offshore operations, Three Gorges Energy 001 must withstand the test of high winds and waves.
咱们这个船对于抗风暴的等级啊，还有一些个就是应急情况啊，都是做的非常的就是全面的。但是确实就是因为它是属于三峡第一艘嘛，就是心里还有一些忐忑的。
In the face of the surging currents and strong sea winds, the vessel achieves stability by means of 4 30-story high piles.
装腿的长度呢，直接影响着我们风机吊装的这个情况，因为它的重心不稳的话，倾覆、侧翻都是有可能的。
With its 4 long legs firmly placed on the seabed, a hydraulic lift quickly lifts the vessel weighing more than 10,000 tons out of the water. The elevated hull is now like a stilt house, standing solidly in place, no matter how strong the wind and waves are. The vessel is now a stable platform, but there are still problems ahead. When the wind blows hard, heavy objects being lifted will swing wildly. Another important mechanism of the Three Gorges Energy 001 is its guy cable system. This stabilization system can lift objects weighing as much as 400 cars in force 5 winds.
我们的吊机上面，如果仅是一个吊钩的话，它是左右啊，包括这种旋转啊、摇晃，它是控制不住的。所以说，这个揽风系统是一个恒定张力的，它有3个点呢，它就相对是比较稳定的。
System readings show that lifted tow's swing amplitude is within the designed range, which is a very satisfactory result. At 5 p.m, the installation of the tower and generator has been completed. Now it's time to install the heavy assembled impeller, the ultimate test to see whether the Three Gorges Energy 001 can meet all requirements.
第一台风机吊装，另外一个是新的船、新的人、新的机器，挑战这个最高难度的一个这个实验室进行一个机器的磨合，大家互相的一个接触，都是需要磨合的，这是。
3 83-meter-long blades are first lifted onto the vessel's deck, which is as big as 6 basketball courts. The assembled impeller is 171 meters in diameter, nearly as wide as 3 Boeing 747s, parked side by side. On the deck, with very limited space, the installation workers need to insert 144 bolts into bolt holes in the rotor hub at the same time, which is a real test for the engineers. The assembled impeller weighs 164 tons. The difficulty of lifting it onto the tower, which is more than 100 meters tall, comes from the blades themselves. The blades of the wind turbine have a huge surface area, so a slight sea breeze may cause problems. The most difficult operation is about to begin. A blade tip of the impeller is clamped to keep it stable during the lifting process.
"有时候小到1厘米左右的，就是那么一个间隙距离，一点转动的话，就可能导致我们的螺栓跟螺栓孔之间的对接就对接不上。
The assembled impeller is quickly lifted to the height of the generator. The next step is aerial docking. To bolt the impeller hub onto its axle, 168 bolts this time must be inserted into their pre-drilled bolt holes precisely.
八百吨现在这个角度怎么样？
可以，应该可以，离那个发电机有2米左右。
2米，再抬点吧，再抬个1米。这个第一台机嘛，我们先搞距离搞大一点。
The engineers have only one chance, so the aerial docking must be done in one go.
现在就一个动作，旋转往右，800吨，旋转往右，现在一个动作，钩头停掉。
After more than 4 hours, the impeller and the generator are perfectly docked. thanks to smooth cooperation between the command staff and crane operator.
三峡能源东东幺第一台风机的顺利安装，标志着我们将驶向更广阔的海域。
Now, the Three Gorges Energy 001 has shown its full worth by passing the demanding test of a full offshore wind turbine installation.
001号算是给我们三峡呢做出了一个就是说开拓性上的一个就是提前迈出的一步。
Today, technological innovation and equipment upgrading are becoming the core motors of China's new energy development. As of 2021, China's installed capacity of offshore wind power has reached nearly 17 gigawatts, leading the world by a huge margin. Wind turbines themselves are only one piece in the overall capacity. After their current has been generated, it must be transformed and transmitted in a form that can be fed into an electricity grid. A modern economy needs a reliable and steady power supply, which wind turbines on their own cannot supply. This flexible direct current converter station is the world's largest offshore converter station, independently built by China. It manages problems such as low controllability in the long-distance transmission of offshore wind power. On its own, it weighs 22,000 tons. How can it be transported and installed on a platform 70 nautical miles out at sea? Sha Chung-hai is one of the managers of this project. Although his team have made demonstrations and simulations, his engineers are still unsure about whether they can successfully meet the challenge.
看一下这个传感器，之前现在已经把它的差不多了。这是那个法塔振动监测那个传感器吧？对，现在准备了2路电源。那它这个之前有没有调试过？调过，一定要保证它正常能用。调试过了是吧？调试过。它电源呢？电源怎么弄
This is the core of the whole station. Its converters contain 5,184 insulated gate bipolar transistor chips, which will control 265 offshore wind turbines and convert their combined alternating current of 1.1 million kilowatts into direct current for transmission to the East China power grid, with about the same volume as the Beijing's Olympics aquatic arena, the water cube. It has extremely high requirements on precision and is extremely sensitive to vibration. A small inaccuracy or uncontrollable fluctuation may result in disastrous consequences.
我们在运输过程中，可能整个船舶的横摇纵摇，就是说，可能对整个结构可能都会有一些轻微的摆动，所以我们压力也非常大。
For Sha Chung-hai's team, the first step is to transfer their behemoth cargo to a semi-submersible transport vessel. It's raining, but the engineers are more concerned about tides than any precipitation. They are also tracking wind speeds around the estuary of the Yangtze.
大雨啊，5点钟大雨。
早上的这个天气预报呢，这个地区呢有这个相对有这个雷暴天气，对我们现在这个上船有多少大的风险？就算他来，咱们有多少大风险？因为他是在船上。
所有的人员保障的队伍液压、山供、冰控、后勤，这个切割。如果说要离开岗位，必须经过警示汇报同意以后，然后再允许，好吧？
Satisfied that the conditions are right, headquarters give the command to go ahead. Pulled by winches, the superconverter station moves slowly towards the river. It must reach the dock before the tide has fully risen, so the number of winches is increased from 5 to 9.
华谊对我们来说这么重的也是一个挑战，我们的这个基础所承载的28000吨，怎么样把它均匀的分摊到工装的跟滑道上。
After being pulled 200 meters, the converter station arrives at the dock intact. a small gap exists between the tracks on the vessel and those on the dock. To ensure it's crossed successfully, all testing devices on board should be turned on. A ruler can also be used as the most straightforward measuring tool. To completely move the converter station over the gap takes a full 4 hours.
还有个100多架。当我们听到第9个响声的时候，就证明我们整个安装过程中离成功又近了一步。这个5厘米可能算自己目前人生中最长的一段距离了。
Before the tide goes out, the station has been fully loaded. Next, it will be towed out through the Yangtze estuary towards the Huangshaoyong Sea area off Rudong in Jiangsu province. 7 years ago, the China Three Gorges Renewables Group launched its first offshore wind farm here. Today, it has the largest group of wind turbines in Asia. The superconverter station that will soon be installed here will solve the problem of how to manage, transform and transmit a huge volume of power being intermittently generated, a problem that still taxes the best engineers in the world.
我们三峡能源采用柔性直流的输电海上风电项目，它对于未来包括咱们三峡新能源，包括整个中国开发深远海起到一个示范的一个作用。
The Huangshaoyong Sea area is the center of 3 major wind farms. Metaphorically speaking, the third generation direct current converter station to be installed will function like water tower that regulates the direction and flow of its power with precision. In the global development of new energy, Chinese engineers have come up with a solution on how to manage the intermittent power generation of a large number of wind turbines. After sailing for over 10 hours, the transport vessel arrives at its target area. Unfortunately, rain and fog have now reduced visibility.
上海在下大暴雨，天一黑，那个风肯定在我们这里。现在航手几家，能不能控制一下？稍微，反正我们现在只有4点半了。
Yao Chunghua is the offshore transport and installation commander. With offshore engineering experience of over 30 years, he knows that offshore operations are extremely dangerous. Low visibility will add to his anxiety. Not far ahead, a steel frame platform can be seen. It's here that the superconverter station will be installed. Soon will come the challenge of lifting the station, of more than 20,000 tons in weight, onto it. With the coming of dusk, the weather clears. Such conditions out here are rare, so the team decides to seize the window of opportunity.
我们就争取18点40到位，那么就开始那个压载。压载的话就是基本上。
To carry out installation, the semi-submersible vessel carrying the station needs to be pulled slowly into the space, the 2 sides of the platform frame. Each side is 85 meters long and 15 meters wide. This must be done with great care. Contact between the 30,000-ton vessel and frame sides could result in disaster.
因为我们要保证12个支撑点，它相对位置不能有偏差，一有偏差，有可能有一个支撑点就对不上，或者是有一个支撑点发生轻微的磕碰，就有可能导致整个安装过程失败。
Pulling the semi-submersible vessel safely into position requires perfect balance. Next comes the task of positioning the converter station's 12 support piles so that they slide with centimeter accuracy perfectly onto their steel mounting troughs.
53米，53米。
In the monitoring room, a high-definition locator transmits in real time the position of the drop point. This will ensure the converter station, now 10 meters up, can be perfectly aligned for a smooth lowering onto its mountings.
通过这个我们现在的监测的系统，我们基本上0.005以内，0.05G， 基本上加速度基本上都是 符合我们的要求的。
Everything is ready. Now comes the final positioning. At 8 p.m, the offshore converter station has been safely lowered onto its mounting frame. Monitoring shows no deviation in all of its 12 support piles, and both the amplitude and the potential value of core components are within a safe range.
拿海上风电这个领域来说啊，第2等级是世界最高的。就我们从前面的追赶到后面的赶超，然后就是一步一步，感觉自己参与到里面，还是非常有荣誉感的。
The super offshore converter station can be seen as a high point in the history of new energy development. By the end of June 2022, it has successfully transmitted an enormous amount of electricity to the East China power grid, the equivalent of burning 270,000 tons of coal. This has provided clean energy for nearly 400,000 households on the Yangtze River Delta. From the river to the sea, Chinese strength, determination, and wisdom have conquered a major challenge in energy transformation. Far up the mighty Yangtze River, amid towering mountains, the number 7 generating unit of the Baihuotan hydropower station was officially connected to the power grid in August 2022. So far, it has supplied more than 10 gigawatt hours of urgently needed electricity to the load center of the East China power grid. Generated with no emissions, energy from the Three Gorges Renewables Group has brought coolness to the people living south of the Yangtze River during the hottest summer so far this century. Huainan in Anhui province, which has traditionally been a coal-producing area, is today confronted with the problem of industrial transformation to clean energy. At 9 a.m. in the morning, Kai De Wong, who's on patrol, receives an instruction from the control center that a device around 600 meters from its current position needs handling.
收到，将 I 标段15区颈部的铆层进行处理。收到。
Huainan is one of 13 mining bases in China with an annual output of over 100 million tons of coal. Over the past decades, coal produced here has provided strong support for the rapid development of the Chinese economy. But since deposits in some areas have been exhausted, disruption in the stress balance of underground rocks has led to their deformation, displacement, and fragmentation, eventually resulting in the collapse of the ground surface. On the East China Plain, where Huainan is located, the groundwater table is close to the surface. After ground above old mines sank down, its surface fell below the groundwater table, resulting in waterlogging. In some areas of subsidence, the depth of the water was the height of a 7-story building. Subsidence and the flooding that came with it have caused severe ecological problems. Disconnected subsidence lakes of different sizes have also restricted local economic development. As conflicts between economic growth and environmental protection intensified, the choice between the two was a test for the resolution, bravery, and sense of responsibility of a great country. This spring, the world's largest floating photovoltaic power plant, built in a coal mining subsidence area, was successfully connected to the grid for power generation. The farm's floating modules are anchored to the lakebed with cables. With subsidence ongoing, however, there's a danger that further sinking of the lake bed will pull the floating modules and the solar panels mounted on them down into the water. The job of Tai De Wong's patrol team is to tackle such problems.
小心啊！
对，应该是这个。
是这个，
应该是这个。你看，现在已经吃水深度大概在30厘米了，这必须要处理了。
这可能这边能不能往这边串一串？
The lake in mid-May has a water temperature of lower than 20 degrees Celsius. Cold water, in fact, is of benefit to the floating photovoltaic power plant because it cools its modules and cables. This significantly improves power generation efficiency. The floating modules, meanwhile, shade the water below them from sunlight and reduce evaporation. This restrains the growth of algae, which in turn improves the quality of the water. Through such floating photovoltaic solar farms, areas that were once devoted to coal mining are now generating clean, zero emissions energy. As a demonstration zone, this power plant has now been running for nearly 5 years. During this period, it has produced nearly 760 million kilowatts of clean electricity, saving 230,000 tons of coal. Replacing polluting fossil fuels with clean, renewable energy is the mission of the Three Gorges Renewables Group. As for Huainan locals, they are benefiting from the productive repurposing of land that was ruined by coal mining. Tai De Wong is one such local.
买几件是纯棉的还是买几件？
买纯棉的。
这个也可以吧。
Compared with his old job at the coal mine, Tai's work environment today is much safer and more comfortable, with better pay as well. Just as important are bright prospects for his family's future. Today, his daughter is turning 1 month old, so Tai has specially invited his former workmates at the mine for a small gathering. Although he's moved into an apartment, Tai De Wong still keeps his old house, where he can cook authentic Huainan dishes. Since ancient times, the Chinese people have lived in harmony with nature. In the new era, a beautiful landscape of blue skies, lush mountains and lucid waters is reappearing in our sight. Anji in Zhejiang province is surrounded by green mountains carpeted with verdant bamboo. Hidden in this picturesque landscape, Changlongshan Pumped Storage Power Station has its powerhouse 1,200 meters underground. It has 6 generating units for a total installed capacity of 2.1 gigawatts and is able to promptly regulate fluctuations in power derived from wind and sunlight. With capabilities for peak clipping, load shifting, frequency modulation and phase modulation, this pumped storage power station has become a supercharger for the load center of the East China power grid. Inside the powerhouse, 5 generating units have been put into operation in July 2021. The countdown for the debugging test for the last generating unit has also begun.
今天的调试计划，我们现在马上要进行6号机组抽水至发电工况的转换试验。
我们刚才已经组织人员完成了这个水轮机和发电机的这个检查，然后监控力司。
At 8 a.m., project managers Xu Jie and Yao Liang, along with the installation engineers, are getting ready to initiate the process.
现场各部位请注意，现在我们马上要开始6号机组抽水至发电工况转换试验。
收到，经检查，各部位系统运行正常，具备试验条件。
The meter shows that the generating units are ready, so the operating mode changeover test can now be launched. This is the key test before a generating unit is put into operation for power generation.
验证这个计算机监控系统的这个自动转换流程是否正确，任何一个环节出现了问题，这样都会导致转换失败。
As the most technically mature method of physical energy storage, a pumped storage power station uses surplus power from the grid during off-peak periods to pump water from a lower reservoir to a higher reservoir for energy storage. When needed, water is released from the upper reservoir for power generation. The purpose of the ongoing operating mode changeover test is to verify that generating units during water pumping can be switched to power generation within 500 seconds of receiving an emergency instruction from the power grid. This fast response is a great challenge of electromechanical design, manufacturing, installation and debugging.
在发电的时候正转，然后抽水的时候反转。然后用一个机组实现了发电跟抽水的2种功能。
The generating unit is pumping at full load. Powering 11 impellers, its drive shaft is rotating at high speed. Its huge centrifugal force pumps water from the lower reservoir to the upper reservoir, up a vertical distance of 700 meters.
6号机组抽水至发电工况试验正式开始。
Once the command has been issued, the dual-use pump turbine generating unit needs to switch from reverse rotation to forward rotation within 500 seconds, a process called operating mode changeover.
肯定是越短越好，迅速将机组从抽水工况转换到发电工况，然后来保证这个电网的安全稳定运行。
The height difference between the reservoirs is nearly as much as 2 Shanghai Jinmao towers. This creates water pressure in the unit's diversion pipe, equivalent to the thrust of hundreds of bulldozers. Water pressure this high can impel the rotating shift to spin at a speed of 600 revolutions per minute. The instability of wind and solar power generation has intensified fluctuations in its power grid. Pumped storage stations can store energy and release it when additional power is needed to reduce these fluctuations. To cope with the complicated task of peak regulation, many key components of this pump turbine generating unit need to be improved.
假如转换过程中没有把这个控制好，上库的水全部冲击到我们这个转轮上，导致机组发生飞翼。
After the unit's super-hydraulic starter pushes a wide-open inlet ball valve until it's safely closed, the time needed to complete the process is displayed as 65 seconds. It's a good start, buying time for the unit's roll switch from that of water pump to power generator. All readings show that technological innovations made to enable the unit to achieve a quick changeover of operation modes have met requirements for grid-connected power generation.
转换时间都控制在480秒以内，这个难度也是非常高的。
As important, regulators, voltage stabilizers and balancers, pumped storage power stations have become the standard configuration of electricity grids powered by new energy sources. Xu Jie and his colleagues know that there will be no end to efforts to improve the speed of power generation and supply. While the pumped storage power station's last unit is approaching full operations, a green project initiated alongside is also underway. 3 kilometers north of the Chunglongshan power station lies one of the world's best tourism villages, Yutsun Village. With its stretches of bamboo forest and gurgling streams, the mountain village showcases the concept of ecological civilization.
这里体现了古人所说的天人合一的这样一个自然景观。
Chen Tao was the director of the construction of the power station. Working here in the birthplace of China's guiding concept of lucid waters and lush mountains are invaluable assets, he has a deeper understanding of ecology-first green development. It means that to protect the environment is to protect productivity, and to improve the environment is to boost productivity.
绿色设计、绿色施工这样一个理念，尽可能的保留原始的生态环境，做到让山水林坝融为一体。
How should the upper and lower reservoirs of the pumped storage power station be blended into the landscape? Yu Xiaoyi is the project's greening designer, and she is finalizing her scheme called Colorful Chunglong.
竹子它是一年四季都是常青的，它缺少色彩，所以我们提出来缤纷长网，就是增色，就打破了它单一的绿色。
Around the Chunglongshan pumped storage power station in the future, over 200 varieties of azaleas will add to the beauty of the Green Mountains and their verdant bamboo. The dams will become colourful sky gardens. This spectacular ecological and industrial landscape will be an attractive part of the overall project.
长龙山抽水蓄能电站的建设是对人与自然和谐共生的探索。 同时，也是反映了我们对绿水青山就是金山银山这一理念的践行。
In China's new era, mega projects represented by newly built hydropower stations, such as Wudongde and Baihetan, on the upper section of the Yangtze River, are playing the part of cornerstones in the construction of ecological civilization.
三峡集团基本建成世界一流清洁能源集团。 和国内领先的生态环保企业，努力为实现碳达峰、碳中和目标，促进全面绿色转型做出更大贡献。
By striving for the goals of carbon dioxide peaking and carbon neutrality, providing clean energy for 1.4 billion people, and protecting China's green homeland with its actions, the Three Gorges Corporation is reshaping China's energy base and creating a new map of clean energy development.